we're going to the Kindle. All right, Lin Castaldo, this mic is all yours, my friend.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, we are on chapter 5, Reason Speaks. And Mike, you had your hand up. Did you have a question? Did you want to say anything?
No, I don't know what I pushed, but I wanted to go to the chat. Sorry, no, I didn't have my hand up.
Okay, thanks. But anytime anybody would like to share, just unmute yourself and join in. So we are on chapter 5. If you have the book, it's page 47. But I'm going to start with this quote that I got yesterday from Andy Grugel or Gragel, Andy Schragle, that came to him on the 18th of December. What is it I am teaching the world by making it true for myself? And as Rafi was talking, I was thinking, yeah, what am I putting out into the world by making it true for myself? So that holy instant, is that what I'm putting out so that the world feels a little bit more peaceful and I can feel more peaceful? Can I stay in that holy instant? You too, Gloria. Gloria, yeah. I loved all the sharing. I was multitasking, so I couldn't be sitting here right now before, but I had my earbuds on. So I love hearing it. Um, yeah, what am I putting out into the world? And I love that divine mirror. That was such a beautiful image that I want to hold on to. Perfect. So, reason speaks. So, we are reading The Annihilated Self, Consumed by the Fire of Love by James Twyman. And this is just a gorgeous book. I can see why he called it his favorite and his most important book. He says, a new voice enters the conversation between the soul and love, the voice of reason. So, we're going to be hearing from a third. This is the voice that thinks and believes, different from the voice of love which feels and knows. And because it cannot understand anything, love shares. Wow, it cannot understand anything love shares. It questions and asserts its belief in an attempt to draw the soul back to familiar ground. And so the conversation expands. So that reason that steps into our mind, um, it sounds like, when all of a sudden all these other thoughts from mind appear. So here's reason. I don't understand any of this, love. You speak of surrendering the need to surrender and falling inward instead of reaching outward. You're only confusing the soul with this talk. Before long, the soul will believe that it no longer needs to be the subject to the virtues that eliminate the path to God. Illuminate. Without virtue, humans fall quickly into despair, which leads to every sort of confusion. Stop this before it goes too far, love. You know, um, what's come to me so many times is that in order to follow this course, we have to be purified. We have to be pure of heart because otherwise we will be dragged down if we don't have that virtue. But on the other hand, there is that part of us that knows love and can follow. So love says, ah, reason, how long you've stood guard at the gates of the soul, how faithfully you kept the tower intact, brick by careful brick, convinced that the view from the highest window is the sky itself. You speak as one who has read of fire, but never felt its heat. You speak of virtues as though they are ends in themselves, forgetting that they are merely signs, lanterns lining the path, not the path itself. Virtue is not the summit, dear reason. It is the gentle slope the soul walks until the slope dissolves and the walking ends. And what's coming to me is that ladder, that ladder reaching up, and each prong that we step on that brings us higher and higher to the truth. You fear the soul will fall prey to its own weakness without your guiding light. But I tell you this, the soul cannot fall when it is already resting in me. I love that. The soul cannot fall when it is already resting in me. And I'm thinking to myself, the soul cannot fail when it is already resting in me. What you see as a danger, I see as surrender. What you call confusion, I call emptying. The sweet unknowing that precedes divine clarity. Yesterday they were talking, Rhoda was talking about that sweet spot, that Angelo talks about. That's that sweet spot, resting in God. So reason answers. But these virtues, humility, patience, devotion, they lead to God. Shall we cast them aside? Without discipline, without structure, the soul becomes like a child lost in the forest. You would have him wander with no map, no compass. What's wrong with leading us to God? So love answers, virtue has its time, yes. It tames the outer life. It prepares the temple. But once the temple is still and the flame is lit, the soul must no longer tend the walls. He must fall into the flame itself, the temple being our body, right? Virtues are garments the soul wears to protect his modesty while he still believes he is separate. But in union, there is I'm sorry. But in union, what is there to hide? In perfect love, there is no longer even the one who acts virtuously. There is only love loving itself. Love loving itself. You mistake surrender for chaos reason. Haha. But what I ask is not abandonment, it is completion. I do not destroy virtue, I transcend it. What need is there for humility in a soul who no longer sees itself apart from God? What use is patience where time has dissolved? What discipline is needed when there is no longer an I to obey? So when we reach that beautiful soul of love with compassion and humility and devotion, we're no longer separate. This holiday, and I guess it's everything that's been happening with me in the past year, but I just felt this absolute bliss, this joy. And um, I was reading C.S. Lewis and the Surprised by Joy, and he was talking about how he had these three incidences of joy, and he was explaining how joy was so different than happiness, and that um, at times it just comes and it's fleeting and we can't bring it back. But I want to just go back to he said there's a desire and a longing um, It was absolute joy. He says there's a quite difference between ordinary life and even from ordinary pleasure. Something, as they would say now, is in another dimension. It's like that bliss. C.S. Lewis explains, it is that of an unsatisfied desire, which is itself more desirable than any other satisfaction. And he calls it joy, distinguished both from happiness and pleasure. And anyone who has experienced it will want it more and more. But then joy is never in our power, as pleasure often is. We wouldn't exchange joy for all the pleasures in the world. And the funny thing about it is this is like into chapter 1 or 2, beginning of 2. And then he says, if you're not getting this, then stop reading. And I thought to myself, this is it. This is, I keep saying, if all this is truth and it's universal, it's got to be in multiple places and absolute. And I just love when I see it in all these different places. All right, so back to love. I'm just going to reread this. Virtue has its time, yes. It tames the outer life. It prepares the temple. But once the temple is still and the flame is lit, the soul must no longer tend the walls. He must fall into the flame itself. Virtues are garments the soul wears to protect his modesty while he still believes he is separate. But in union, what is there to hide? In perfect love, there is no longer even the one who acts virtuously. There is only love loving itself. You mistake surrender for chaos reason. But what I ask is not abandonment, it is completion. I do not destroy virtue, I transcend it. What need is there for humility in a soul who no longer sees itself separate or sees itself apart from God? What use is patience where time has dissolved? What discipline is needed when there is no longer an I to obey? So soul responds. So the virtues are like scaffolding. At some point, they have to be taken down. Love responds, yes, my beloved. Scaffolding is good. It holds the structure as long as it's needed. But when the building is complete, to cling to the scaffolding is to obscure what was meant to shine. Do not misunderstand me. Virtue has served you well, but it is not your final resting place. Even the most luminous virtue, if clung to, becomes a veil. Perfection is not the performance of goodness. It is the absence of self entirely, the total absence of self. So reason replies, but without self, what remains? You speak as if the soul must vanish, as if the very core of identity must be undone. Oh my goodness, I can remember. Yeah, I can just remember thinking this. If I vanish, who am I going to be? If I leave this identity, won't it be so boring? And I see Lynn's putting in the I know mind doesn't really know at all. How true. Because what I finally realized is with no identity, there's peace, there's love, there's wisdom. So love responds, not undone, dear reason, revealed. You believe the self to be core, but it's crust. What remains is not void, but radiance, not absence, but pure being. When the self falls away, what remains is what was always true, eternal, invisible, and whole. When the self falls away, What was always true is eternal, invisible, and whole and present. And Rafi put, I am nothing. I doesn't exist. Any other comments? Feel free to just unmute or just raise your hand. Soul says, then to cling even to virtue is to keep the self intact, feeding the identity that believes it must become something holy, rather than dissolve into what already is and has always been holy. To just dissolve into what already is and has always been holy. Love responds, yes, precious one, that is the final illusion. To think you must earn your place in me when all I've ever asked is for you to release the veil you mistook for skin. You do not need to strive for goodness. You are the goodness that striving only imitates. When you fall inward, when you surrender even the need to surrender, what remains is not lawless. It is love beyond all law. Let reason fret, sweet soul. Let virtue bow. Let the scaffolding fall. And in that silent space, know that you have never been anything but perfect in me. Feel for a second that free fall. Oh my goodness. The images that I'm getting right now are lots of fun. That free fall, to just fall into that love, fall inward, surrender everything, even the need to surrender, and just be perfect in love. Reason says, you want the scaffolding of our most sacred traditions to fall. And that's exactly it. The most sacred traditions that we've held onto. You know, I was listening to somebody talk about the Jews and how on the Sabbath they're not even supposed to flick a switch, to put the light on. And they have all these man-made rules that really don't serve a true purpose. They don't serve even the most sacred traditions that we were given. What about the great saints who built these scaffolds? They are saints because of their virtuous lives, aren't they? Are you asking the soul to forget all of them, even their examples? And Love says, oh, Reason, your devotion is touching, truly. You speak with reverence for those who have gone before, the saints and sages who built scaffolds of luminous virtues so others might begin to climb. And yes, honor is due to them, for their lives were lanterns in the dark. My prayer is to pray for us, to protect us, and prepare us. And we're under sometimes I idolize the saints, and I forget to realize the hardships and the anguish that they went through, the dark night of the souls that they went through before the veil was totally broken and they totally surrendered. Love says, but listen closely. They built scaffolds only to help you rise beyond them. And for those on the radio, that's in black, bold print. They built scaffolds only to help you rise beyond them. The saints did not cling to the structure. They became the silence the structures points toward. Their virtue was not a possession, nor a banner to wave, but a surrender so deep that even the idea of virtue dissolves into me. And how many of them still had great doubts. You know, I think of Mother Teresa and her anguish and her dark night of the soul that she kept so well hidden, except when she wrote her letters to her instructors. And even St. Padre Pio, you know, the fear that came to him in his later days when it was close to the end. You know, here is a man that was so blessed, performed so many miracles, prayed constantly. And one of his prayers had to be, um, I'll, oh, I can't do this. Sorry about this. I have to send a message. Um, one of his prayers was, stay with me, Jesus, in this darkness, in this fear, you know, and I sit there and I say to myself, oh my goodness, he's just human, like the rest of us. But they build scaffolds only to help you rise beyond them. They didn't cling to those structures, but they became the silence the structures point to until they totally dissolve into me, God, Spirit. Do you believe they became saints by clinging to ideals? No, they became saints by falling into love until nothing remained but love itself. They became nothing, not through desire, but through delight. They emptied themselves of everything, even their righteousness, until only God remained. They emptied themselves of everything. So, no, dear reason, I do not ask the soul to forget them. I ask him to follow them fully, to follow not just their words or their rules, but their falling, their vanishing, their wild, holy relinquishment of even the things they once clung to. So to allow everything to vanish and just do that free fall into the arms of our Savior. Did Saint Francis not strip himself naked before the world? Here's another one. Did Saint Teresa not lose her words in the rapture of silence? Did Miser Eckhart not say, I pray God to rid me of God? Wow. These are not builders of walls. They are dissolvers of separation. They burn the blueprints in the great fire of love. Wow. They stripped themselves naked and just were raptured by the silence. Soul replies, then following them doesn't mean building like they built, but to let it all fall as they did. And love replies, yes. Follow their love, not their form. Use their scaffolds if they lift you. But when you feel the sky open above you, let go. That is their true gift to you, not the path they carved, but the surrender they embodied. They do not weep when you release the old. They rejoice. Wow. That's their true gift to us. Let go. Love says, you see, the saints never asked to be worshipped. They asked to be disappeared into. They asked to be the winds that push you into me. So no, dear soul, do not forget them, but do not cling to them either. Their message is sacred, but their love is alive. And I am not calling you to simple imitation. I am calling you to sacred union. And in union, there are no examples to follow. There is only what is. So come, let the last scaffolds fall. Let even your love for the saints dissolve into the love that gave them life. There you will find them again, not as statues on pedestals, but as light in the flame that has always been your own. Wow, this is just so beautiful. So Reason replies, once again, love, you lost me because we can't understand this. You know, we can't understand with the mind, but we can feel it with our hearts. There's just a knowing. It's so beautiful that, again, that joy that is beyond our knowing, that joy that is just perfect bliss. So Reason says, once again, love, you lost me. You say, let the scaffolds fall, including our love for the saints who have been holding the lanterns you claim. Stop telling the soul things that lead to confusion and share with it the wisdom these saints and sages have offered the world. They were transformed by the virtues you dismiss, and they call us to the same transformation. Oh my goodness. So what's coming to me is the fact that all these saints and sages led us. They opened the path. They lighted the way. They transformed the world by their virtues. We're not dismissing them. We're moving forward. And love replies, you are right, dear Reason, when you say that the saints call us to transform. But here is my question. Who is it that's transforming? Is it the little self? Or is it something deeper that reason will never comprehend? You seem to believe that without the pursuit of virtue, the soul will fall backward and away from grace. I am saying that when the soul allows my voice to penetrate all the shadowy corners where it has hidden in fear, the virtues you claim as so important will be automatically and effortlessly followed. In other words, the I that thinks it needs virtues will have dissolved, and then it will act as me, the source of all virtue. So we'll be automatically joined with love, the deepest. I have to share another story that I posted on Facebook. Brendan Lake, has become this musician star, but he's taken on a path of love for everyone. And it's just so beautiful to see him blossom, and he struggled in the beginning. And if everything you can read on Facebook is true, he said he struggled and his mother actually had to sell her house to keep him in music. So he was quite honored and humbled. So anyway, he's been winning awards left and right. And when he went to take his music award, I forget which one it was, and he was on stage, they said he didn't turn around and, thank the usual people and show his gratitude. What his message was, those of us that have been successful and have made it have a great responsibility to others. We have been given much, so much is expected. I've been feeling that message over and over, and I just love when celebrities step forth and put it out there. And that's what he's doing. So I just hope more people will follow his example, because in this great world, no one should be hungry. No one should be less than. There's just so much to go around. So anyway, I digressed. So Reason says, but if the soul no longer strives to become virtuous, how can it possibly remain anchored in what is good? You say the I dissolves and that virtues arise effortlessly. How can there be goodness without intention, without the will to be good? History shows us the chaos that follows when people cast aside moral structure. Without the scaffolding of discipline and the pursuit of holiness, the soul is left vulnerable to illusion and error. And this is why I feel so strongly that we have to reach that purity so that there is no illusion or no error. So love says, ah, reason, you speak with the voice of fear dressed in wisdom. You see, your role has been to protect the soul from its own forgetfulness. And you have done so with great care. But your protection has become a prison. And Michael Singer's house has come to me. You know, the point where he builds a house out in the peaceful land so that he could be there. And then before you know it, he's built this house and the shield around him, and he can only see through this little window. You know, it's become a prison. The goodness you speak of, the goodness that must be pursued, maintained, and measured, belongs to the realm of duality, of opposites, of shadow and light fighting against one another. What I offer is not goodness opposed to evil. What I offer is not goodness opposed to evil. I offer what is beyond good and evil, the pure radiance of being, the flame that casts no shadow. And that's what we need, the pure radiance of being, the flame that casts no shadow. And yes, when the soul dwells there in me, virtue blooms not from striving, but from stillness, not from effort, but from essence. The soul acts with compassion because compassion is its breath. It lives in peace because peace is no longer a choice, it is its nature. Think about that. Peace becomes our absolute nature. There's no pride in this, no claiming. The tree does not boast about bearing fruit. It simply offers what it is and bountifully. So when we have that peace and we offer that peace to our brothers and we live in that peace, we're radiating out that peace. That's what we're teaching. That's the divine mirror. Wow. So reason says, but transformation requires work. It requires repentance, commitment, the will to change. Are you suggesting that a soul should simply do nothing and wait for perfection to descend? So I used to say, and I still say, you know, be still and know God. Be still and do nothing except what Holy Spirit suggests to us. So love's answer is not nothing, dear one. No thing. There's a great difference. I do not ask the soul to be passive. I ask it to be transparent, to cease resisting the light that is already pouring through it. You speak of repentance, and yes, the soul will know sorrow. It will shed tears, but not from guilt. It will weep when it remembers what it is, the radiance of love itself. What you call transformation, I call revelation. The soul does not become something new. It unveils what has always been true beneath the veils of becoming. And this unveiling is not accomplished by will, but by surrender. And how many times has it been that we hit rock bottom and we just have to totally surrender because we don't know what else to do? And that's when we're transformed. That's when the revelation comes through. When we find the total truth. So reason answers, but surrender itself is still a choice, still an act of will, is it not? And love replies, yes, and a sacred one, but only at the beginning. Surrender opens the door, but once the soul walks through, the surrender vanishes. There is no one left to choose, to act, to improve. There is only what is. There is only love, loving through the vessel of the soul. There's only love. That's what is. In that state, there is no need to remember the saints, for the soul has become what the saints became, emptied of self, filled with me, God. The saints are not guides to imitate. They are echoes of your own awakening. They serve not to direct, but to remind. So reason replies, then you would have the soul go beyond memory, beyond structure, even beyond example. You know, reason just can't understand all of this. You know, he's trying to think it through, and we just can't think it through. And that's where the stillness and the silence comes in. Love responds, yes, but not in disrespect, rather in fulfillment. The lies of the saints is the music that lured the soul out of sleep. But when the soul hears the source of the song within itself, the need to follow notes and harmonies falls away. It has become the music. It does not abandon the saints, it joins them. That's the communion, the union of everything. So I say, dear reason, let the last scaffold fall, not to dishonor the path, but to enter what lies beyond all paths. Let the soul pass through the fire of all it thought it needed and emerge as life itself. And you, dear reason, you may rest too. You have brought the soul this far. Now let love carry him the rest of the way. So it's like saying, thank you, reason. I appreciate all that you have done. I appreciate your safety and all that you have given me. But now it's time to let go, to let love be the one to enter and transcend through the fire and emerge as life itself, the source of the song that sings within itself, the music. How beautiful. That's the end of the chapter. Anybody want to comment?
I just think this is a lovely conversation, and I see exactly, what love is saying. The crutches that we've used to get where we've been, the scaffolding that we've used, we don't need to drag that along with us anymore. And as much as we love them, the saints or our teachers or whatever, they didn't bring us this far so that we could just keep following along behind them. They brought us this far so that we can awaken to the truth of what we are, which is the same thing. It is that. So all the attempt that we have to hold on to the stories of the past and the dreams and the hopes of the past are just fool's paradise. Absolutely. So thank you. I love this book, Lynn. And I see Mike has his hand up.
Yes, please. Thank you for sharing, Lynn. Yeah, so true. Mike.
Yeah, hi everybody. Thanks, Lynn. I got this book on Kindle, and I guess that's why I raised my hand at the beginning. That's what I was going to say, and I forgot. Um, yeah, I got the book on Kindle and I've been reading it. I'm right up to this spot right now. And what we read today, I really enjoyed the a couple times it talked about silence, going into the silence, and that I highlighted that um, because that's I like what it said. And in that silent space, know that you have never been anything but perfect in me. It was talking about letting reason fret and virtue bow, let the scaffolding fall, and in that silent space, know that you have never been anything but perfect in me. That's um, that's what I try to get into silence, get into that quiet. It doesn't require any discipline, any virtues, any scaffolding, any doctrines, any dogma. It's just getting into the quiet. And then on the next page after that, it says, but listen closely, they built scaffolds only to help you rise above them. The saints did not cling to the structure. They became the silence the structure points towards. And yeah, everything today can be a pointer. I can make it into a pointer to take me into the silence. And those are the two main things that jumped out to me when it talked about seeking the silence and going inside into the quiet space. And that's all. Thanks for letting me share that.
I appreciate it. Yeah. The just their example in showing us how to walk the path, and having that, because if the mind isn't silent, how will we receive the message? Another thing that C.S. Lewis pointed out was a question that they used to ask themselves: is the future a line you can't see, or like a line that is not drawn yet? So the saints, might have taken us so far, but we're here for a reason. We're here to take it further. You know, we're just trying to bring love into this forsaken world, and it so desperately needs it. So we have powerful influence, in trying to keep this peace and love and project it out in that divine mirror. I can't, it's going to be one of my phrases now. I really like that. um, just to radiate that love, especially when
Yeah.
you see so much that isn't. Go ahead.
Yeah. And another thing that sort of came to my mind was when you were talking about what was talking about the examples the saints set and the things they did. And I've heard a lot of people say it, and I probably even said it myself too, like, oh, I can't be Saint um, Mother Teresa. I can't be Mother Teresa. And what I think a lot of people are saying, and I probably said it too when I say that, is that like I can't go to India and feed hungry people, but that that's just what she did after she reached the silence. What about all the meditation and um, all the other things she did just besides go and feed people and take vows of poverty? There was that was just all scaffolding of her life, but the truth was in the inside. And so I don't think anybody's ever said I can't be a true quiet soul like Saint Mother Teresa. They're always like saying I can't go feed the poor all day long in some faraway place. Anyways, that sort of popped in my mind. Thanks.
Yeah, and to further expand that, like she even knew that not everybody could do what she was doing. So, but she said, just do a little thing that you can do, and yet I was just thinking as you said that, look at the struggles that she had to go through to get to that point. She had gone to the Pope, and they didn't think that she should do that, so she had to keep going back and saying, no, this is my guidance. And the other thing that has struck me is how she, like, you don't hear the criticism a lot, but I've heard somebody criticize her because she had so much money and she could have built this wonderful hospital to help some of them instead of just allowing them to be in a hospice type setting to die. And as much as they respected each other, think of Padre Pio. Padre Pio built that hospital so that people had a place to go to with the best doctors, you know. So he took it a step further, and I feel like, that, look at Helen, she struggled with the course, and here we are, living day by day. It's just amazing. So I'm going to start chapter 6. Only love is. So love responds. I pray your soul was not discouraged by the play you just witnessed, dear soul. Reason has been your friend longer than you know, and it does not want your friendship to end. That is why it's fighting so hard for you to return to its world. But the fire within you is beginning to grow, and as it changes from a glowing ember to a burning inferno, many ghosts will rise to distract you, drawing you away from the simplicity of my message. All I ask is that you hold to your desire to dissolve until even that has dissolved. Then every other voice that might have distracted you from me will be stilled, and you will hear your own voice speaking through and as me. So, I mean, we've learned this as the ego. The ego doesn't want to dissolve itself. And then the ego even becomes the super ego, the religious ego. But she's saying that all of it has to dissolve. Soul replies, it's hard for me to imagine such a thing, to speak through as love itself. It's true that I feel the fire burning within me, but I can still hear the echo of reason's words. Can you suggest anything that will help quiet its voice? And for the longest time, you know, thinking that I would be one with God was like blasphemy to me. How in the world could I even think or consider that union? But I can accept the union with Jesus so much easier. Like that just comes natural. And that's the route that I go. And then I read that, someday that's even going to have to be dissolved. But I feel like if that's what Jesus says, then we'll see. So love responds. Can you suggest anything that will help quiet its voice? I'm sorry, that was soul. Soul asked the question. And love responds, oh, dear soul, yes. You are trembling at the edge of a deathless life. And reason, though it wore a noble crown, was never meant to follow you here. It served its purpose in your early journey, measuring, comparing, guiding you through the forests of virtue and valleys of sin. But it cannot phantom a love that has no opposite, a goodness that cannot be earned. Let me offer you this. Do nothing. Desire nothing. Be still and let yourself be undone. Here we go again. Be still. Desire nothing. Be in total silence, total allowing. and let yourself be undone. It's not something that we have to do. Soul says to do nothing feels like a betrayal of all I've been taught. Isn't that sloth? Isn't that death? My granddaughter loves this sloth. um, isn't that death? Do nothing. It so goes against our human nature to do absolutely nothing. To be what we would call lazy. And yet there's such a richness in being still. So love answers yes and yes, but not the kind reason fears, not the sloth of indifference, but the rest of surrender, not the death of the body, but the blessed annihilation of the self that sought to preserve itself through effort. This is the annihilated self, a soul no longer seeking, no longer striving, no longer dividing the world between God and not God. Wow. No longer seeking, striving, or dividing the world up between God and not God. For all it sees is me, God. You ask for something to quiet reason's call. Just unhook the latch from the door. Let it cry from the threshold if it must, but don't go to it. Don't argue or explain. Simply remain where you are, bare, poor, empty of you. That is enough. So just be. Just allow that silence and just be. Just be aware that all those thoughts are coming to you from reason. Not that we have to think them, but that mind is trying to help reason what we should be doing because they have the old set of rules. But now there's a new, beautiful set of love rules. Not that they weren't there before, they were. We were just, they were just hidden from us. But heart knows, soul knows. Unhook the latch from the door, but don't go in. See it, right? Just see it. Be aware of it, but don't allow it to take over. And don't argue or explain. Just be the poor, empty, bare you. So soul replies, but isn't it prideful to claim that I could be love, that I could speak as you? Like that was my fear for so long. Probably still a little bit hidden there. Love responds, ah, precious one, that is the last trick of reason. False humility. You do not, I'm sorry, you do not become love. You are undone into it. The you who fears pride, who fears blasphemy, who fears losing its goodness, that you must melt like snow in spring. Oh my goodness. Boy, is this speaking to me. The last trick of reason, false humility. You do not become love. You are undone into it. We are being undone. And you melt into its goodness. When nothing is left to protect, love alone remains. And then I, who was hidden behind every veil you ever lifted, will begin to speak, not with your lips, but with your silence, not with your effort, but through your rest. Can I trust that, right? Can I trust that everything will be given, everything that is needed? Wow. Soul replies, so there is no ladder left to climb, no virtue to perfect, no vow to keep. And love in dark black bold print says none. Only this, fall endlessly into me. Even this conversation will one day cease. But do not be afraid. I do not live in words or even in thoughts about me. I live in your not knowing. I dwell where all ladders end, where the eye falls asleep and never wakes again. And in that sleep, the truth in you will awaken. Wow, we only have 3 minutes, but I think I want to start on this page again, but I just want to reread this. I live in your not knowing. I dwell where all letters end, where the eye falls asleep and never wakes again. And in that sleep, the truth in you will awaken. So go into that silence, go into that sleep, that beauty that we've been learning through the course. And now we have this beautiful book to really take it deeper. So thank you, James, and thank all of you for your sharing. Have a beautiful week. Have a happy, healthy new year. And I will give this mic back to Lynn.
Thank you so much, Lin Castaldo. And thanks, James Twyman, for writing that